To be able to make the fish scale, we have to make one more vertex group. So let's jump into the edit mode. Now we are in the edit mode. Select your body selection. So we will be selecting the body, but it's including the eyes. We want to deselect the eyes. So now we only want this area to have the fish scale because the eyes will now have that. Let's make one more vertex group, and I will call that skin instead of scale because it's more easier for me to remember. And press assign. And press select to check you really got it. But there's one more thing that I forgot to do earlier. It's the face orientation. Actually, we should do that in the first modeling step. So let's check the face orientation. So you can see some part is red and some part is blue. So just pick one side, like this side, and flip all this part. You can see the red to blue. Just change to this face selection mode. Get all this red area, and also here, and also here. And click Option N to flip. Let's check in the front. So this area should be also blue. So one side it's only this tail area, it's red, and the rest is blue. And the front is all blue. And this side is all blue. Yeah, and this side looking like this is fine. So that's what we want. Solidify modifier, it will be fixed. Make the number really small because this part is really thin. It's not like very thick. So maybe 0.01 is good enough. And jump back to the geometry node. So we take a group input and press N because we want to bring that skin selection back into the geometry node. Press plus and then that to be skin. And choose the skin vertex group. So we got that. And now we grab this output. We take this to the output. Just for temporary. Because now we only worry about the fish skin. So separate geometry and the skin. So now we got this mesh that we wish to grow fish scale on. We use a triangulate with dual mesh as one setup. So let's take that triangulate and make the square face to be triangle face, and take a dual mesh and click on this keep boundary. Now we have to make two more depending on how small you want your scale to be. So let's bring this closer. It's easier to work in this way. And now you can click off this solidify for this moment. So let's duplicate this and plug that here and plug this out. So that's 2 times. So let's make one more time. Now it's pretty much looking like a fish scale, but now they are connecting together. We have to separate them. So we use a split edge to split them. After you split them, you might see something like this or not. So why is looking like this? It's because of this smooth modifier that it will smooth each individual. I will toggle off, and now I'm sure it's being split because the smooth modifier is working. Now I have to scale them. Use scale element and change the second option to be the single axis and set the scale to be 1.5. And you just tweak this number and you might see they are like this if you see it closer like this. So you just have to find a perfect number that is looking the best for your need. And right now I feel this number is working okay. Maybe you can try to turn on this solidified modifier to see. Yeah, it looks pretty okay for me. It's not intersecting too much. So let's leave that on for this moment, and we duplicate this and reset that. So just plug that back and set this number to be 1.3. And we can always come back to change this, because after we do some change for this model or after we do some material, it will look a little bit different, so you can change this later. And if you feel this is like still too big for what you like, there's two ways you can do. One is you duplicate one more of this to make it even more face, or you subdivide surface it first. But this way the scale will look very uniform. Maybe that's what you like. I don't think I need this much, so I will mute that. I can mute this too. Maybe I will use that later, so leave here. I feel like this is okay, and I can put a subdivide modifier. Maybe I can put this before it will be flatter. I think it's the easiest way to make scale for any mesh that you want. And now we make a switch, so we can toggle on and off of this, because we don't want this always leave on. Plug this here and we can toggle off or toggle on. Plug this back. So we join the scale that we make with the joint geometry. And put this back. So now we got this. And the scale looks a little bit different. It looks shade smooth. If that is what you want, you can do it like this. Or if you want it to be like very flat like before, you can just plug this back and you put the shade smooth before that. Duplicate this for everyone, and you can just choose which part you want to shade smooth and which part you want to leave as flat. So I don't want this is the scale to be shade smooth, so I toggle off that. So I take this back to here. Okay, maybe I put this after the shade smooth. So now it seems to finish this fish scale. However, because we have joined them together, still have this fish body that's separate right at the beginning. So you can see them intersecting, and in some situation maybe you don't want to leave the base mesh on. But personally, I still want the skin beneath the scale to be on. So now we have to make the scale of the fish a little bit above the fish body. So let's go back to here and right very front, maybe here, we can use extrude mesh. And before you plug in, just set this to be 0.01, try that, and click off this individual. So let's plug that in. And now you can see the scale and the body now intersecting too much, so maybe you can extrude a little bit more. Yeah, I think that is good enough. And now we frame that, and I would like to name that to be fish skin. Okay, now we can organize this a little bit. Put this shade smooth over here, make them more uniform. Delete this and duplicate this and toggle off. So now we have three parts. The first part is here, is the fish body, and this second part for this is the fish tail, and the last part is the fish scale or the fish skin. And now we can turn on this smooth modifier, but you have to make sure you have this all part selection on, and that way it will not affect the scale. Before it will, because it didn't find this selection, because before it was without that part, so it couldn't find this, so it will smooth everything. And now if we join them together, and it will find the part that you defined, so it will not smooth the other place, it will only smooth out this edge area. So now if you make this basic model that to be looking more pretty, it will look like a very nice fish. But I will not do that now because that is not the most important thing. You can do that in your own time. And now there is actually like a final things about this fish model is we want to delete some face of this tail. So if you take a look at the reference from the Pinterest, sometimes the fish tail it will look like this or like this, or sometimes it's just simply broken. So we can delete some face to do that. So let's delete some face from the fish tail. To be able to do that, we have to make a material for showing the distance value. First go to the material section and we create a material and we will call that fish. Set material and choose this material to be fish. And now we give a color to test. Okay, so now for sure we have material. And now we have to take some attribute out. We would like to take this distance attribute out. And not only this, we will make one more for different use. So if you see this after offset, it's set to point, but we can make one more. It's set to edge, and it will behave differently, and it's very useful. We just duplicated this and set this to be edge, and plug this back to here, and we rename that. I will rename that to be after offset edge, and this to be after offset point. Okay, and of course we want to also do the same thing here. So duplicate this and set this to be edge and plug this together, and also change the name. Okay, and we make another distance and plug this to here and take this to the distance. So we got these two and we can frame that as well. And then this first one to be dist point and the second one to be dist edge. And we take both of these values out. So just drag that all the way to the output. Okay, and this edge as well. And rename that. Press N and rename that to be this point, and the second one to be this edge. And now we go to geometry node modifier and put the name back. So now this way we can use this value in the shader. So go to the shader editor and make sure you're on the fish and take an attribute. Take two attribute and we just copy this name. And let's test out for the color to the base color. So now you can see there is some change, and you can use this to color your fish later on. Test this as well. And even more, we can mix them together. Mix RGB. I think now you will pop out a lot of ideas to color your fish. And you can change this maybe to multiply, and it will behave a little bit different. But now we use mix. But now that's not the focus. We have to go back to the geometry node to delete some face. And now we are back in the geometry node, and first we can toggle off this first. It will be easier to work on. So what about all these two values? First, we can also mix them like we do in the shader. And we can try to plug this with the big noise to see is there any change. So now if you see the structure is even more stronger. That's before and that's now. Even looks more beautiful, I think. So let's leave like this. Yeah, and we have to delete face. Let's stop playing around. We will delete face after this section so we can make some space. So of course we use delete geometry. Try to plug that in and it will delete everything. So now we know we need some selection, but we also want to work with this value. So let's take these two values over there, mix them together and bring to there. And we take a compare and just drag this and these to the selection. So now you will see something that some part is being deleted. Set this to be 0.5 and drag this a little bit to test out. And now you see the tail is looking like this, like half string, not just like one piece. And also we can mix that with some noise. So take a noise texture and use another mix RGB and plug this color in here and take a color ramp to make the color more contrast. Yeah, so this point is just like you playing around with the noise. It really doesn't matter how you put it because it's very abstract. There's no right answer. Maybe you like it to be broken so much. So this part you can do whatever. You can play around with this, doesn't matter. I plug this to the vector of the noise. Maybe set to 4D so you can like change it, the pattern more easier. That's the delete face. So make a frame, including this, and we can name that broken face. So at this point, we basically finish all the shape of the fish, except the detail modeling. We can do some animation, but it's not a swim animation, it's the wave movement of the tails. That will be the first layer of animation. So let's see how can we do that. Be able to do that, maybe we want to lower our resolution. So take this subdivide to 0 and this thickness to be closed temporary. If we try to drag this W of the noise, you can see there's movement. And also here and here. And we know there's no cosine time. You can drag the sine time to the W. And personally, I like to use second. Either way, just have to do some math after that. So let's play the timeline to test out. Yeah, it does move. Maybe you want to change your time frame longer, so it will not loop so fast. And let's make it slower, so use math and multiply 0.3 for now. If you play the timeline, it definitely is moving, but there is some part that is moving like very weird, like jumpy. So if you try to mute these two, you can see the biggest noise. It's actually moving fine. The reason of that is because of this noise. It didn't plug in any vector. Same as this. If it didn't plug in with any vector, it means the position. So if I take a position, I try to drag that in, it wouldn't change anything because if I didn't plug the position, it automatically defined as the position. However, when this biggest wave is moving, the position change. So the vector of this is changed. and the result will be very jumpy. So how do we fix that? So we have to take a position vector attribute that is before anything is moving. So we already have that. We know it's this 4. So we have 4 attributes that is define the position that it's before the moving. And you can try each of them. You can see what is the difference. But I will prefer use this offset position point. So let's try to plug that in. So that's before. It looks like this. And if I try to plug that in, and I play the timeline, it will move kinda smooth. But consider there's movement now, so maybe you want to change some value of your noise, make them looks prettier. And something about all these 3 color ramp, you can change them to be float curve. Let's try that. So if I change this to be float curve, I can also do basically the same thing as this color ramp. So if that is how you like, sometimes it's easier to control. Sometimes it's more difficult. If you want to have more detail to control this, it's easier. But if you just want to bigger picture of this control, it's easier to use color ramp. And also all this color ramp right now is plugging with this point distance. You can try to use different one, maybe use the edge distance to see is that what you like, and change some value. So I have been playing around with some value, but the biggest change is I put this small noise, the last noise, after the delete geometry. So in this way it works better. And also I changed this to be divide and some value like this. And we can frame this time and name that to be time, and duplicate this and set that to be add. So now we can change this W by some number that it's going to change your noise. So this is everything that you do with the fish mesh. And then we'll just have to worry about the shader and also the swimming animation.